Hey everyone, it's Ivan, kitbadger.com, out here for another review, and today, talking shoes. These guys right here, which are the Primal 3s by Lems. I've been a big fan of Lems for quite a while, been wearing them for years. When I first found my way to them, they had the Primal 2s. Never had any experience with the Primal 1s. Wore Primal 2s for years and years, to include this pair, which is pretty threadbare. I'll show you it in a minute, in part as a comparison. But recently, as of filming this, they ended up coming up with the Primal 3, and there are definitely some differences. I would say on a whole, I generally think they're probably improvements, but depends on what you're looking for. I will say it keeps kind of largely all of the same concepts as the Primal 2, in that you have a zero drop shoe, incredibly flexible and really lightweight. You don't have a overabundance of cushion in there. I do feel like there's probably a little bit more than the Primal 2, and while this is one of, I guess, the new Primal 3s, when I first got it, Primal 3, when they first released, it had this footbed. Now, as I understand it, the Primal 3s actually have a cork footbed, which is really cool because I do actually have some other Lems with that same cork footbed. I actually really like that, so definitely an improvement there. But I guess I'll walk you through the biggest differences as I have seen and used these. So this right here is my Primal 3. This is one of my old pair of Primal 2. Definitely worn it a lot. And one of the things I've noticed is I feel like the Primal 3s, the foot box is a little bit wider, which is nice, than the Primal 2, which was already honestly pretty nice and wide. As you can see, this is super worn down. These do not do the best with rope climbs, but they absolutely do work. But yeah, finally wore through that. The other thing, and the biggest difference for me that I've honestly noticed, which I actually appreciate in the gym, is basically a thicker and higher sole. So the sole is definitely a little bit thicker, and as you can see, it comes up higher. And that honestly kind of cuts both ways. On the one hand, I do like how thin and light these Primal 2s were. Definitely feel a little more of the ground, depending on what kind of terrain you're on. These, not as much, but when it comes to kind of all-around shoe to include in the gym, this actually really shines. So the Primal 2 to the Primal 3, the reason this shines for me personally in the gym is because of, I guess, how little this footbed kind of comes up on the respective sides of the shoe. You can, depending on how your foot is sitting in here, it almost kind of rolls off of the sole, if you will. Whereas this, similar to one of their other, I'm blanking on the name of their shoe right now, that I've reviewed before, I actually really like it for the gym because this is essentially the footbed. And so when you go, especially think lifting something fairly heavy, what's great about minimalist shoes is pretty much everything's transferred straight to the floor. You don't have this big block of cushion. This absolutely has a little bit more than this, but because of how this comes around, it basically creates a really stable base. It is not a lifting shoe, but a much more stable base than this, where depending on as you put pressure, your foot can kind of push or almost roll to the outside of this because there isn't essentially a distinct footbed, if you will, if that makes sense at all. Which I guess brings me to what has been my experience. How have I used these? Well, I pretty much wear them daily, all the time, and they're great around town, whatever. Also done a bunch of traveling in them. Really nice because this is probably how I tied the laces when I first got them, and I've never tied them since. Really easy to just pull these things off, ta-da, and then same thing, just putting it back on, in part because there's no heel cup, which I actually really like, so you can very easily just slip these on, slip them off, whatever it may be, which is really nice going through security, or even especially on a long flight, being able to just slip these things off and not have shoes for like a 10-hour flight to Finland. Other places, well, definitely spend much time with them pretty much in the gym. Whatever the workout may be, whether it's lifting, any type of like gymnastic movement, rowing, whatever it may be. And yeah, they've done a good job for me. I've also done a fair bit of hiking and actually a lot of time on the range. To include, I'm pretty sure I ended up using these in some classes as well as competitions, to include Red October Kalashnikov Championship. At no point during any of this was it like, oh man, what I really need is a really high, stiff shoe or boot. Like, they do a great job. To include pretty much kind of whatever type of terrain, rocks, gravel, stuff like that. And yeah, I've been really pleased with them. If you're interested in picking some up, you can get them directly through Lems. There'll be a link down below. Price-wise, about $125. I think 5 different colors, this being their black. They are a minimalist shoe, and with that in mind, it's wonderful because it gives your body the ability to basically use all of the musculature and structure that you were naturally born with. However, if you've been wearing something with a giant cushion heel, and if you run heel striking, you will not do that in these, or you'll do it once and then you'll never do it again. So if you are getting into minimalist footwear, which I think honestly there's probably a lot of health benefits to, ease yourself into it, especially if you're a runner and you start going down this road. Definitely ease yourself into it. You will pay for it otherwise. Your calves will be on fire. But awesome shoes all around, just daily shoes, hiking, lifting, whatever it may be. They've done a good job for me. But as always, thanks for joining us at kitbadger.com. Look forward to seeing you next time.